I'm on agency number 3. I am 47 years old this year. I intend to own multiple agencies, maybe even a portfolio of agencies for the remainder of my life. Call it for the next 40 years. I have a vision. I'm going to live to 100. I'll be in my 80s still running a portfolio of businesses.
Finance is probably, math is not one of my strongest suits, and yet I'm in a finance job. And you know what? In 18 months, I excelled and I moved on to a business development role. I was head of business development for the entire organization. I had never done a day of sales in my life.
Welcome to Outsource to Profits. I have a fantastic guest. Do you mind introducing yourself? Tell us a little bit about the world you serve and how you have a new coaching conference coming up as well. We'll be talking about.
Hi, Jamie. Thank you for having me. My name is Dr. Richardson. I am the founder and CEO of Pinnacle and Beyond, which hosts a conference called CoachCon. We're coming up later on in August, September this year with our first inaugural coaching conference. And, I'm a business strategist and a coach. I spent the last 14 years of my career, or the first 14 years of my career in corporate America, working for a Fortune 500, going through the Harvard of what it means to run a large multinational corporation through a bankruptcy. And then I pivoted into entrepreneurship. I spent the last 12 years in entrepreneurship, going from different companies, startups, to companies that are scaling, helping them run, to coming back into startups, and back and forth in a number of different industries. And where I found my passion was that ability to help guide other people on their journey, whether it's corporate or entrepreneurship, and help them, realize whatever that dream was that they're looking for.
Fantastic. Now, here's kind of the topic. We're going to be talking about the juxtaposing world of some talking about resiliency, never quit. There's this concept, pretend that entrepreneurship was a video game, and all that matters is you just keep putting in, you have more quarters to put into the game. Even though it's game over, you keep putting more quarters. I was listening to a podcast episode with Seth Rogen talking about his career and the millions of actors that have failed along the journey and have quit and have left the industry. And he said, the only commonality between actors like him and all the rest are those that actually stick it out. But then there's this other camp that think about this idea that you should fail fast. You should try multiple things. And life is experiments, and don't become a prisoner to your own business and sticking with something too long. As an example, my second agency, my first year or so into it, it was flourishing, but we were wildly underfunded. We were non-technical founders in a tech-enabled business. And by year 2, it was very clear that this was going to be a lifestyle business, yet this was not intended to be a lifestyle business. We had raised capital the whole bit. So I had these moments of choice. Do I stick this out and go 10 years longer? In the world of AI, I would have never survived anyways. But do I keep sticking this out for 5 or 10 more years, knowing, because I've already owned another agency for 10 years. So I know what it's like to become a prisoner to your own devices. At the same time, then quit, fail. You have investors. You have to figure that part out, but moving on. So with that, Ty, I know that was a big intro. Do you mind kind of steel manning? There's 2 paths in life. You own a business. You can be resilient no matter ebbs and flows and ups and downs. Or there are times where you might need to pivot. Maybe talk through some of these.
So, Jamie, first of all, I think that is true in business and in life in general. I think you do have those 2 camps, that fail fast, fail forward, and move on to the next thing quickly, or that I'm going to stick this out for the long haul. It's a short-term pain for a long-term gain. And the reality is I've married both. In my corporate career, whenever I moved into a new role, I'd never done it before. When I was promoted to being a bank manager for the credit union that was part of the organization I was with, I'd never done a day of banking in my life. I had no clue. Finance is probably, math is not one of my strongest suits, and yet I'm in a finance job. And you know what? In 18 months, I excelled and I moved on to a business development role. I was head of business development for the entire organization. I had never done a day of sales in my life. I had no idea what I was doing. I knew how to run people. Was running a department. And then 2 years later, I was moved into call center operations. Again, never did a day call centers in my life, but they gave me an entire division of call centers to run. And it was effectively managed and operated because I knew the founding principles of what it meant to run a group, run a department, run a team, and get to success. So that the art of sort of sticking it out and doing the pivot works. It absolutely works. I am proof that it actually works. I learned how to do those jobs while I was in the job. Similarly, in starting a social network company, that was my first entrepreneurial venture. Leaving corporate America, I went to Silicon Valley. I went through an accelerator, and I had to learn how to build a social network. I had never done technology in my life. I had no idea what I was doing, but we built it and we launched it, and it happened. But so there are fundamental principles that allow you to and that social network, by the way, failed. And within a month, we pivoted to product development, building a product development company, teaching other people how not to build social networks. I think inherently the solution here is when you fail, you have to take whatever you just did, learn from it, and use that to persevere through the next thing. The one constant has to be that dream, that vision, entrepreneurship, or living a dream that you have, or getting to a value, or looking at an outcome or a goal that you've set for yourself for 5 years, and then realizing that the destination stays the same, right? That's the constant. That's the stick it out to the end. As long as the destination stays the same, the path can change, right? You can have things that work, you borrow from those things and you keep making them work. You have things that fail. You take out the things that worked and the things that failed, you discard the rest and you add it to the next venture. But you keep the destination the same. And I think that's the way you marry both.
This is such sage advice. I have lived this personally. I'm on agency number 3. I am 47 years old this year. I intend to own multiple agencies, maybe even a portfolio of agencies for the remainder of my life. Call it for the next 40 years. I have a vision. I'm going to live to 100. I'll be in my 80s still running a portfolio of businesses. Exactly what you said. Here's what I ended up doing is here's my North Star. Here's what I know to be true. I am an entrepreneur. I am going to have equity in businesses, whether I sit at the board level or in the operating role. That's the North Star. A North Star. Some will come, some will go, some will fail, some will succeed. On a tactile level, what I ended up doing was documenting something I'll call my first principles. They're like my 10 commandments. They are the things in each part of a division of a business that I have learned over the years that I would never repeat again. Now, let's make this tactile. In my first agency in Sales for Life, it was, you could argue that maybe 25% or 33% of the revenue was reoccurring. So there's a difference between recurring revenue, like automatically mailbox money comes off a credit card, versus reoccurring. About 25 to 33% of a year's revenue would be multi-year contracts that would renew itself, annual renewals. You'd have to talk to the customer, they would renew and go forward. The rest of that 75, 66% of the revenue was all net new. And what happens is you become bigger, the law of big numbers kick in. And so you are constantly chasing new business and you start to stall out, and it really stagnates growth as you get into the multi-millions. I vowed, and to compound that, we allowed our customers to pay in accounts receivables. Big corporations, they would sign payment due net 30, net 45, net 60, net 90. So the more millions that we were making, we became a bank. We were essentially funding Microsoft and Oracle and Intel and Thomson Reuters accounts receivables. Well, when you get into the millions, again, you'll wake up and you'll have $300,000 to $500,000 in float that you are the bank as a small business waiting. You're using the next month's cash flow to pay previous month's expenses, and you just get too far behind. So long and the short is I started to document in my next business, I will never have what's called DSO, days sales outstanding, any debt, any days of accounts receivables. So the first principle in Get Levrg when we set it up was 100% of customers had to pay on credit card. No questions asked. I have days sales outstanding of 0 days. I have money on the first of every month, guaranteed. I can use the customer's cash flow to grow the business. I have a positive cash flow cycle. Long and the short is exactly as you just described. The North Star is the resilience. The pivots are all the mistakes in the other agencies. I now document what I would and would not do ever again. This is great. So, anything you want to add to that? But then I have another question for you.
No, it's a little bit of a paradigm shift, Jamie. What it is people tend to think, oh, this goal, that's right now that this is the end result, but it's not. You have to figure out what is the long-term vision for your life. You've already set your 100-year goal. You know what your portfolio is going to be. Your empire is going to be of agencies. So as long as you keep adding agencies along the way, or shutting some down, or pivoting some away, or rebranding or reshaping some, you're still on the right path to get to that end goal.
Yeah. So if you were to lay out a foundation for those that are listening, you're a founder, you're going through a tough time. You're a new founder. You're thinking about, do I leave the corporate world and go into this murky water that is entrepreneurship? So all these decisions. Can you help lay a foundation for sound decision making as to back to where should we persevere and where should we be honest with ourselves and perhaps pivot?
Oh, Jamie, I love this question. It was the basis of how I became a business strategist and coach. And the fundamental thing that everyone needs to start with before making any moves in life, whether it's career or entrepreneurship, is knowing your strengths, understanding what you're good at and what you're not good at. Too often times we get into entrepreneurship thinking we can do all of it. And then we discover that entrepreneurship isn't all nice and fluffy and the good stuff that we've seen on TV or we know to be true, but the really hard stuff, finances, creditors, like you said, this, invoicing, delayed payments, like that's the hard side of entrepreneurship, but it's not the side we see when we make the decision to go into entrepreneurship. So one of the fundamental things is understand who you are and what your strengths are and what your weaknesses or what your opportunities are, and then find ways to leverage those weaknesses. Now, if you're going into business for the first time, you can't necessarily hire staff immediately, right? But maybe you have a partner, maybe there's technology, maybe you can have a VA, maybe you outsource some stuff, maybe you downsize what you're doing, maybe you allocate part of your day to doing the hard stuff you don't like, so the rest of your day is super easy and the stuff you do like. But all of those systems should be in place from day one for you to understand what you're really good at, what you want to spend time on, and what you might avoid because it's too difficult or too challenging or you can't do, and then figure out a solution for that. Because pivoting and failures happen sometimes not intentionally, and they could be overcome if you actually took the time to realize this strategy instead of just avoiding it.
This is fantastic. How do people get a hold of you? Tell us a little bit more about CoachCon and learn from that particular event. I believe it's in August, is it?
Yes. So we are hosting it on August 19th and 20th. It is our inaugural CoachCon. And what it is CoachCon is an ode to new coaches or early stage coaches, people who left their career and are transitioning into entrepreneurship. It's also for founders who have small businesses, but it's anybody in that early stage who wants to learn business, the insides and outsides of business. We've created a 2-day virtual platform that have some iconic speakers. We have Justin Bieber's coach who's headlining it. We have a couple of TV producers, music producers, film producers that are going to show you what it means to be on a big stage and have an audience that large. And then we have the tactical stuff. So how do you do podcasts? How do you do sales? How do you do marketing with AI, etc.? And all of this is main stage stuff. And then every coach or every founder has an opportunity to work in a private group with their coaches. So we want you to bring your coaches, bring your staff, learn with them, and then build an action plan before you leave. So this 2-day concept, this CoachCon concept, is meant to be transformative in the time that you take to attend, because once you leave, you will have an action plan both for your business and the businesses that you're bringing with you.
This is fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being on Outsource to Profits.
Thank you, Jamie. If you need to reach me, it's CoachCon.global or on LinkedIn.
Thank you.
All right.